it drives.
I'm starting this video off on the right foot with an immediate learn from my mistakes moment. Let me show you what I did wrong. I want to replace these mismatched tires with a set that match the back. This started off innocently enough because I had rims that matched the rear rims, and the tires that matched the rear tires for this size were on clearance. So everything was going great. Now the problem is we have 5 bolts here and 4 bolts here. Now I've had good luck with adapters, so I bought some. The adapters start off with a 4-bolt pattern, which fits. Now this spacer is thick enough, but notice there's no lug studs sticking out. Got another piece. That goes on here with more bolts. And now we can add our wheel. There is a wheel on, but I don't like it. There's the disc brake. The wheel is way out there. There is way too much space. There's too many parts, they're too heavy, and they stick the wheels out too far. Nothing about that is good. The one good thing is at least it's level so I can work on mounting it. But I've got to change that before I get this thing up to speed. It is a lot easier to move this around with brown tires. Need to figure out how I'm going to mount these. Originally this subframe mounted with 4 bolts there and there. I took out the little rubber pads just to get a better measurement. I was digging in my scrap bin, found a couple pieces of seriously thick wall tubing, and it's a 1/4 inch or so. Now I can run bolts with the head inside the tubing that I can get to and still be able to unbolt the front end, and then I can take the top side and weld it to my chassis. I've got 1 bolt in those pieces and some C-clamps holding it up. I know for sure I need to angle this whole front end somehow, but I don't know how much. Because I don't know how much it's going to lift up when I put weight on it. I'm not sure how strong those C-clamps are. Probably not strong enough to hold a whole vehicle. So I'm going to stand back just a bit and then let the lift down and see what happens. Right, we have touchdown there. Rear suspension's compressing. Front suspension's compressing. We're coming off the jack stands. Now that weight is on all 4 wheels, I need to get a measurement on the caster angle. I'm going to need to mount that whole front cross member at some angle, but I don't know what it is. So I need to figure out what it is now and then adjust it to what I want it to be. These wheels pivot on a shaft that goes straight down, and that looks like it's very square to this arm. And that arm, we're pretty close to level on that arm. 1/2 degree or so. Yeah, I'm thinking around 1/2 degree. Means I could take that whole cross member and kick it back quite a bit. But now we know, we have a number. And I could take weight off this thing and stop worrying about those clamps coming flying apart. I need to mark up where I want to cut this tube to get that one to sit at the angle I want.
I'm looking for at least 10 degrees of caster to keep this going as straight as possible.
Now I got my angle cut here. I intentionally left a flat spot at the end. That way the next piece will butt right up against it. Now the biggest forces I'm going to see is up or that way from hitting the brakes. So by having a notch in it, this piece will slide up against that notch and then transfer the force directly to this beam rather than the weld having to take all the work. I still don't trust my welds, but I'm going to put a lot of weld on here and hopefully it holds. I need to run a bolt into there, but I need to go from the bottom and go up. So I need to get inside this piece. At the factory they probably worked through this hole here. I've got spring and control arms blocking my way, but I see a little access hole here. Just going to enlarge that slightly. I'm going to pop this rack off to make it a little easier to get access to it. Looks like this is just 4 bolts. That's better. I've got what I can welded. Gonna yank off the front end again in order to finish up the welding. I got my crossmember mount welded in, and everything looks real sturdy. This tubing's got some pretty good wall. I know it's gonna be strong enough, but it just kind of looks like it's hanging out there. I'm gonna add a little bit more. I came up with a piece of angle. Now I want to tie this piece and that all together with one piece. And they aren't in a line, so I had to make a little bit of a bend. I took out a notch. You notice I took out way too much of a notch. That was on purpose. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this so that this front edge of the tubing actually intersects inside this notch, so they're actually solidly hitting together. And then I'm going to fill this whole thing up with weld, and that'll tie this piece to that piece with both a mechanical connection and the weld itself. We're just going to goop liquid metal all over this whole area, and it should be sturdy. I think it's sturdy. I'm going to use this usual semi-gloss black weld strengthener. Should be perfect after this. Got the front end bolted on for hopefully the last time. Going to drop it down and we might have a four-wheeled vehicle again. There we go. Might have to roll it forward just to see what it looks like. It definitely looks funny, so I'm winning already. What have I done? Spring rate actually seems pretty good. Kind of surprised at that. This might work. Now I gotta do something about steering. I really like how easy it is to work on. This is good access. We have the rack and pinion, the original shaft. I took the stub off the MG steering, so we have that bit of shaft. Then we have the Jeep steering here. So we got a U-joint there, a U-joint here, a U-joint here. I'm wondering if I can go straight from this U-joint to that one in one run. I think that might be the old MG steering column. So let's grab this out of here. That might be it. This will be another win for hoarding. That was the right steering column. I had to do some minor disassembly, but I got the shaft out. This is where the steering wheel went, but the whole end of it is that double D-shaped shaft, which looks real similar to the Jeep one. This is the Jeep one, so I'm going to take this one apart and see if there's any chance that the MG one fits right in. That'd be weird. Yeah, they fit perfect. So apparently, 90s Jeep stuff is perfectly compatible with 70s MG stuff. I did not expect this to be that easy. Got my hybrid Jeep MG shaft here, the other MG shaft here. Looks like all I have to do is cut this end off, slide this double D shape onto that double D shape, and bolt it back in. And now these are both double D shapes, so I can slide these together wherever I want to make whatever length I want, so I don't even need to do any cutting or anything. Now the question is, does it clear the headers? That'll be the big thing. All right, that slips on perfectly there. Yeah, we're gonna have an issue with that. I don't like the way this is only supported at the rack and has no support way out here. So I want to add something to that. And I measured it, this is about a 3/4 shaft. We'll go into another hoard here. And the miscellaneous bearing and rod end. That's looking kind of right. And it is a perfect fit. And that will support the end of the shaft here. I'll hang on to that until I get the radiator in. That's in roughly radiator area. But for now we got to deal with that steering shaft. Now let's go in here. I need the whole shaft to go that way. Now I already moved the steering column once. I think I can go further that way and still have it function. Gonna get this little bit out of the way. Got the U-joint on. We're going up here to where the steering column used to be. All I have to do is find a new location for the steering column over that way, and I should have plenty of clearance. The problem is I'm running into this big pile of brake lines here, and that's in my way. So we're just going to do a brake line delete. Now luckily, none of these brake lines are useful anymore because I took out the calipers. So we don't even have to worry about where they go or where they were supposed to go. We'll just get rid of them all. It looks like the steering shaft should go right about where that bolt is. So that's a good visible thing I can look at on the inside. And let's take out a little bit over here. There's that bolt. So now I know I just need to make a little bit of trimming here to shove that over. Got a lot more room now. Now luckily, this steering column doesn't actually fit where I want. Reason that's a good thing, where it hits is where that bolt goes through to connect the brake pedal. Which means I could drill a new hole in this flange, slide it on top of that bolt, and use that bolt to tie this down in place of the one I cut away. That worked out great. Well, there's our new position. Bolt is in there. With the new steering column position, we've got clearance. Almost a finger's worth. So that's good enough. It steers. That actually worked. I need to get a belt drive set up for this, and this is a perfect time to not have one of those pesky radiators in the way. Now this uses a serpentine belt drive, and there's only one thing you really need to know about that, is you have a V side and you have a flat side. Stuff on the V side goes the same direction as the crankshaft. Stuff on the flat side goes the opposite direction. As long as you keep things like the water pump spinning the right way, you'll be fine. Right here, there was an idler pulley. But it's in my hand, not attached to the engine, because apparently it sat outside too long. I don't know if you can see the rust in there, but that bearing doesn't turn anymore. So I need to come up with something new. Now when I was digging through my parts pile, I found a belt tensioner, which I'll need, but I also found another belt tensioner. And this one has another idler pulley on it, and that one spins.
Unfortunately, when I put the mounting washer in, it stopped turning. We can fix that.
Yeah. Installed and spins free. Bearing doesn't sound great, but it turns, so that's good. So now we go to our belt stash. V on that side, serpentine on that side. Unfortunately, I didn't have anything in my stash that looks like it would work, so I'm going to measure for a new one. 54 3/4 with the belt tensioner all the way out. Around 53 with the belt tensioner already in. This apparently fits a Dodge Stratus 2-liter something. Now this is a 6-rib belt. These pulleys are 7 ribs, but that's fine. We'll just leave one of them unused. It's a little on the tight side. So another trick for one that's a little tight, take off one of the idlers and get it to sit down in the groove rather than trying to slide it over. Now I'm using a tie down to hold the tensioner over while I fiddle with the belt here. It's on there. I took the original front brake line, went to a coupler, and ran more brake line all the way down to a T-fitting, and then up and over. Luckily I saved the old flare nuts for the MG, so I just took a regular line, flared it with the old nuts on. That is going to my caliper. Same thing on the other side. So we have fluid going to the calipers. I don't know if those calipers work, but there's fluid going to them. So we might have 4-wheel brakes. If nothing else, we got a solid pedal, and at least the rear brakes should slow us down for now. I really didn't like my mismatched set of spark plug wires, so I went to buy a new set, but surprisingly you can't buy a pre-made set that is a Mopar engine with a Chevy distributor. I don't know why. So I got a universal set. You got to put your own ends on, but then I can make them whatever length I want. These are 8.5mm wires. My tool is meant for 8mm, but it seems to be working good enough. All I have to do is connect. It's just electricity. Get the grease everywhere. It just slides right in. Okay, we can install. One bank's done. Now I got to do the other side. I got to figure out this whole radiator situation, because I think I need one. I've got about 24 inches. I'll call it 23 to give myself a little extra room. This is the stock radiator. There's no way that's working. Let's take a wander in the yard and see if we have anything that fits. In that corner, I've got my miscellaneous radiator pile. Let's see, we need something kind of narrow. Too wide. That's a possibility. The inlet and outlet are on the wrong side, though. That's a Grand Cherokee one, so I already know that's too wide. What was this from? That one is small. Inlet's on the wrong side. I actually sold this on eBay, It's still sitting here. The guy hasn't had a chance to pick it up, but I know that radiator will work with this engine. Can't steal parts off it, but I could always buy another one. Ooh, 22 wide. That looks pretty good. 25 high. It's a little tall, but not bad. I wonder what this radiator looks like. Looks like the hoses are the right orientation. Around 23.5 wide. That is a possibility. Looks like about 24 high. This would probably work. Nope, too wide. Ooh, 21 wide. That definitely would fit. Yeah, 24, 25 high. This is a better option. I've got 3 possibilities at least, so I'm gonna go find which one's cheapest. I bought a radiator. It was the absolute cheapest one I could find, and the inlet and outlet on the right sides. It looks pretty light too, at only 36 bucks. It's a little smaller than I expected though. I probably should have actually looked at the dimensions. I did order a radiator, and looks like it'll fit well. Problem is, I don't have it yet. It's still being shipped to me. So, I'm gonna see if I can make this tiny little radiator work, at least for a little while. These ends are way too small, so we're gonna start off with a piece of tube. This is basically gonna be a bushing. Then, slide another piece of tube over that. Now, the third layer of tube is my actual radiator hose. Now we can tighten up this hose on there, and that'll be perfect. Only took 1 layer of bushing hose on the top, so we're in real good shape here. This is even roughly the right spot too. I wonder if that would pass tech. I have no cap for that, but that's good, because I don't think I want to pressurize that thing. I wonder if I have spark still. On one of the spark testers. I'm going to replace one of those brand new spark plug wires with one of the old ones and see if I have spark then. See if that's the issue or if the distributor is a problem again. Still nothing. That's kind of disappointing. As soon as I remove this distributor cap, I got a big whiff of electronic smoke. So, I'm wondering if we have let the magic smoke out. Time to scavenge some more parts. We gotta be able to get this working somehow. Like the broken wires. That's always a good sign. I scavenged the parts out of that old distributor that had been sitting outside for years. We're gonna install all that old stock stuff in place of the fancy new stuff. The wires are a little bit iffy on this one, and the insulation is pretty much powder at this point. We're gonna steal the wires off the new one, because I hope at least the wires work, and pop them on this old piece. There, soldered, sealed, let it cool down. Hopefully they've done a good job of copying the HEI, and I can just bolt these parts right in. It is not fitting. Apparently this is not a direct copy of the HEI. You're supposed to install these with heat sink compound. It's a little bit dark out. There's nowhere I'm going to be able to buy it. So I'm going to try to take every last bit off this old distributor and reuse it. Because you can recycle heat sink stuff, can't you? I got a pile of it. The module's fitting kind of. Doesn't quite sit flat. Looks like there's a tiny little locating pin. Let's see if that has a hole drilled for it. This has 2 locating pins, one here and one here. That's not drilled in this distributor. You can tell this is getting late at night and I'm ready to be done, because we're just removing these. Alright, now it should fit. It's the next day. I was thinking about it overnight. Every time I've done this race, I've had ignition issues. And I just put that module in with the bare scrapings of heatsink compound from a different engine. I really want that to not overheat. So I went to try to find some heatsink compound. The only way I could find it is by buying an entire module, and it came with a tiny little tube of it. This module apparently has a lifetime warranty. So I think what I'm going to do is install a new module with the goop and keep that old one as a spare.
If I'm going to replace this under warranty, I need the locating holes. I can't cut the pins off.
These little plastic tubes, I'll use a backside of a razor blade and push everything out. That way you can actually get it all out of there, because they don't give you much. Hopefully we're assembling it for the final time. Locating pins dropped in. Now, let's see what we have. Yep, we got spark. Now the new distributor with all the old parts in it is back in, so might work. I think we need a little more advance in there.
Someone started blocking the camera here. We'll take care of him later. But there's a white line that shows a timing mark, and that should move quite a bit with mechanical advance as the engine RPM goes up. And it's barely moving at all.
Looks like we're taking apart that distributor again.
The distributor didn't sound like fun, so I decided that was the wrong thing to do. I'm going to go for a drive.
Looks like we tested both the line lock and the posi. It looks like the front brakes are working on both sides. It drives. Brakes seem fine, steering seems good, nothing fell apart. We're pretty much race ready. It was a lot of fun getting this thing going and actually driving it and seeing it work. It may seem really weird to stick the front end that far out, but let me show you my reasoning.
We've got to get into a little bit of math here. This is the first version of this Jeep I built. It was the stock length, had a wheelbase 106 inches. Now, I gutted the interior and I weighed it. It was a little over 3,200 pounds. I think 3,250 or something around there. We're going to call it 3,200. The weight distribution is probably something like 55% on the front and 45% on the rear. We have a center of gravity somewhere a bit forward of the middle. That means the distance from this front wheel to that center of gravity is 47.7 inches. We have a 106-inch wheelbase, roughly 3,200 pounds. A distance from the front wheel to the force we're applying of 47.7 inches. And that gives us our weight on the front wheels and our weight on the rear wheels. 1,760 pounds on the front end and 1,440 pounds on the rear end. So that was our initial state. Then I ran into a problem where my drive shaft didn't fit after a manual transmission swap. So I cut the whole Jeep in half and welded it back together 8 inches shorter. After I shortened it, I'm sure the weight was lower, but not a whole lot. I'm still going to go with the same 3,200 pounds. The engine, transmission, most everything didn't really move. I think the distance from the center of gravity to the front wheels is still going to be the same 47.7 inches. Only now, the wheelbase is going to be 98 inches. Now put those same numbers into our calculator. We change the wheelbase to 98. The weight stays about the same. Nothing in the front moves, so that distance stays about the same. And we have our new weight on the wheels. The weight on the front end has dropped down to 1,642 pounds and a weight on the rear of 1,558 pounds, which means just by changing the wheelbase, we moved 118 pounds off the front end and onto the rear end. And now we have our current configuration. The wheelbase is now 140 inches long, and all the weight stayed pretty much in the same spot on the body, but the front end support moved forward, which means we took our 47.7 inches from the front, added 34 inches, and now we have 81.7 inches for our loading point. We now have a 140 inch wheelbase. The distance from the front wheels is way bigger. So now we're 81.7 inches. And this is going to make a pretty significant difference. Now that drops the weight on the front wheels to 1,333 pounds, and the weight on the rear wheels goes up to 1,867 pounds. So theoretically, we moved 427 pounds from the front wheels to the rear. So we should have a lot more traction without adding any more total weight. So this is an experiment. I had to see what happens when you put the front tires that far out. For science, you know. Now, we're pretty much ready to go. There's a few minor things like the cooling system, distributor curve still wrong, need to revise the electrical system. I have to get rid of those wheel adapter spacer things, and I'm sure a few other things are going to come up along the way. With all the loose ends left over, there will be a part 3, so I gotta get back in the garage and start having fun doing that stuff. Hope you guys are having fun too. We'll see you next time.